Good morning, good evening if you're in Europe or on the other side of the world. Good afternoon if you're on East Coast. Good morning if you're in Denver. Good night if you're however where you are. I'm so grateful to have you here today because I have to tell you, when I started the show, I never ever imagined that it's going to become what it did today. I never thought that I would have guests like the guest that's going to come and talk to us live here today. But here we are. And I'm super nervous. My hands are actually sweaty because the story that you're going to hear today is more than a victorious story. It is a story that comes to just rock your life. Um, there's so many things that I can say about my amazing guest, but I'm going to let her share the story of her survival, of her absolutely unimaginable life, portion of her life that she had. With no further ado, let me just bring my guest on stage, and please share this because somebody out there, I promise you, needs to hear the story, needs my guest to talk to her, needs what we're going to share today. So please make this public, share this with the world, not for me, not for my guests, but for the people that need this. Listen to us, and I'll see you in a minute. My beautiful friend. Hi.
Hi.
Chong, welcome to Be Victorious. The little title said Be Victorious with Theodora. This has nothing to do with me here. This is the story of being victorious with Chong and her amazing story. I'm so honored to have you. I can't even thank you enough, and I wish I could hug you, and I wish I could be there to just show you how much I appreciate you taking time and being here with us. How are you doing today?
I am great.
I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
How do we know each other? How did we get to know each other?
Actually through Bob, with his Next Level podcast. I've actually met Bob a few years back, and I was on his podcast, and you happened to be. They did a group discussion before,
Mm,
and then after that, then he had me as a guest, and that's how you and I got together. And one of the things that I thought was interesting, how we both love true crime stories, but when we see a little rabbit that's being killed by a big animal, we're like, oh, I
right,
can't watch.
right. And I will share as we go on with talking and sharing your story. I'll share a few things with you that um, are really truly very interesting when we're going to talk about your movie, because I know there's a movie. But let's start at the beginning. Where were you born and raised, Jang?
I was actually born in Pyeongtaek, South Korea,
Okay.
but I was only there probably a year. I came to the United States in 1976, 77, around that time. But
Mhm.
I came with my father. When I was born, I was actually born with a congenital defect, and the doctors wanted to get rid of me. My uncle, who is actually an American, was married into our family, and my dad called him and said, they're going to get rid of my baby. And my uncle said, well, you better tell them Koreans to step away from my little niece,
Yeah.
or they're going to have a Texas boot up their butt. So he flew out to Korea and basically brought me to the United States. I was born with um, a hip dysplasia.
Mhm.
I was in a wheelchair to. Did you ever see the movie Forrest Gump?
Yes.
Remember the time he had the leg brace?
Yes.
I had to wear those back in the 70s and 80s.
Mhm.
So I keep feeling some kind of lint, and I also have cats, so their fur gets everywhere.
No. Yes, we have one too. That's awesome. Okay, so then you got to come here, and then you went through medical procedures, or where in the States did you get to live now when you were in America? Where was
um, During the summer, I would come to Dallas, Texas,
Okay.
And then during the school year, I lived in Del City, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And so, because I didn't know how to speak English, by the time I was in kindergarten, the principal told my parents, you cannot speak in Korean to her. She needs to learn English. That's her new language.
Mm-hmm.
So I got held back twice. So then me and my other sister were in the same grade.
Mm-hmm.
It caused a lot of conflict because teachers started to compare us.
Right.
Me being the oldest, there was no ESL class, there was no cultural sensitivity class. So because I couldn't catch up with the other students, I actually had school counselors that put me down as mentally challenged. They thought I was mentally slow.
Hmm.
And so I
Just because
remember
you couldn't
going,
speak English.
exactly, because I couldn't catch on. And I had a learning lab teacher. She taught me how to type on a vintage typewriter that had no numbers and no letters. So by the time I was in fourth grade, I could type anywhere between 40 to 60 word per minute.
Wow.
And then fast forward to junior high, I got to type about 60 to 80 word per minute. But at the same time, I had a teacher that said that my sister was better than me. And so I stopped trying.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I do want to share, I grew up with abuse. Um, every one of my sexual abuse encounters were not strangers. Every one of them were friends of the family, teachers, parishioners, clergy. They were not strangers. They also had access to my parents. So, one of the things I want to share, because I see so many parents that post tons of pictures of their children online.
Mm-hmm.
That's great if you want to share. I would strongly advise not to share them on social media.
Right. Yes.
Get a like Dropbox or things like that. That way you choose which pictures go out and who you share them to, like an old fashioned send them through email. Because here's the thing, it does not matter how private your website is, someone has access to your site. I did a video and I was actually trying to find the video and I couldn't find it. Um, so if your website is private, not everything is private, because if I was a predator and I went to your Facebook page and let's say it's private and I can still see, I can even type in search engine. I can type in little girls in Denver, Colorado, and it'll pop up pictures. I can
Right.
type in the closest school that is near your vicinity, because even schools have pictures of your child.
Yeah.
That's another thing you want to discuss with the school.
Mm-hmm.
How are they not exploiting your children's picture in the school? Now that everything is on social media, how do they protect those pictures? Things like that.
Right.
Do they have a login? Do they have people sign in as a membership in order to have access? Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, whenever I get parents that tells me, I want you to teach me how they groom my child, I tell them, no, I need to teach you how they groom you. Because predators cannot have access to your child without your permission. And so whenever I hear parents say to me, oh, that's my brother so and so, oh, that's Uncle Charlie, well, we trust him. Well, there was a lot of people in my life that my parents trusted because they went to church with them, they went to work with them, and lo and behold, they were also my predators.
Mm-hmm.
And because when a child comes to a parent and says, Uncle Charlie touched me, 9 times out of 10, and I see this a lot, parents will say, are you sure? Maybe you thought this. We need to stop doubting our children.
Right.
What we need to do is ask the correct question.
Yes.
What happened? When did this happen? How did they talk to you? The other thing is, and I always share this with parents, healthy adults, do not tell your children to keep secrets.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. Talk to your children about secrets.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to talk about sex. You don't have to talk about these obscene terminology, because I'll have parents that says, I want to protect my children, but I don't want them to know too much. There is a way you can educate your child without disclosing too much information.
Right. For age related conversations, they come on different levels of sharing information based on their age, right? Um,
Yes,
but you were very little when all this abuse started.
I was
How?
3 years old,
Oh my God.
and it was my babysitter. It
Oh,
was my babysitter.
and that's
My mother said to me, she remembered, I said, he touched me. He touched me. But I didn't have the vocabulary
mm-hmm.
to say where he touched me, how
Yes.
he touched me. And also, my parents didn't understand English very well. So my mom told me she thought that I was saying that he'd like to pat me on the head
Right.
or that he'd like to kiss me because I'm cute.
Yeah.
So years later, about 10 years later, I remember the babysitter. I didn't know it was real for a long time. I thought something was wrong with me. I started having nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
I started thinking something that I was perverted because I would remember these sexual things that he did to me. And so I remember sharing it with my sister, and the next day my mom found out. And when I told her, she said, well, he didn't get you pregnant, so get over it. So
Oh.
that hurt me more than anything because
And
she
you were
defended.
13 now?
I was 13 at the time when I revealed it, yes.
Oh my God.
But, that's not just one thing that we victims shame.
Mm-hmm.
I've even heard parents that said, well, she shouldn't have worn that. Or
No.
if she didn't, all these things to victim blame someone is not okay, especially when it comes to a child.
Right.
No child is asking for it.
Right.
Why are we not getting angry at the 35-year-old man
Mm-hmm.
that's preying on small little girls that doesn't know any better?
Right.
And so,
So
with
there's
that
nothing
being
done.
said,
There was nothing
huh?
done. There was nothing done to punish him or to hold him accountable for any of this.
Actually, he did get caught because I remember my dad was going to drop me off and we saw police cars because he touched another little girl. She told her mom, and her mom called the police. So he was arrested.
Oh.
I remember I had to see a counselor, but I didn't know exactly what a counselor was.
Mm-hmm.
And, but he wasn't my first sexual abuse. From the time I was 3 all the way till I was about 12, 13, I was sexually abused. I was sexually abused at 5. I was sexually abused by another perpetrator. I was also sexually abused by other men from my church, things like that. And so I started to learn how these perpetrators portray themselves. And for the longest time, I used to believe that men and boys did not have feelings because I was always encountered with evil predators. And so by the time I hit teenage puberty, I had the pop bottle glasses. I wasn't popular. We ended up moving from Del City to Blanchard, Oklahoma, which was very rural.
Mm-hmm.
I was the only Asian at the school. So I was also racially bullied. They would make fun of me, saying, go home, you don't belong here. They would call me racial slurs. And so I didn't believe anybody would like me. And so I never dated. I ran away when I was about 12 or 13 years old. I was in the foster care system. By the time I was 17, I aged out of foster care. And one of the things that that I was very upset about, especially with the system. There was no resources for children aging out of foster care. They
Right.
didn't provide GED, they didn't provide housing, they didn't provide grants
Mhm.
and things like that for college. So by the time I was 19, I actually wanted to become a cop. I wanted to help children who were being abused that were being largely ignored.
Is that
But
at the boy?
no, that was I didn't get to go into law enforcement. I went into law enforcement training when I was in high school.
Uh-huh.
Then that's what brought me to Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
But so just to give you a little highlight, for people who lived in Oklahoma and moved and was raised in Oklahoma, to us, Dallas, Texas is not a separate state to us. We go out there for the,
Yeah.
during the weekend, and then we come back. And so when I was living in Dallas, I would go back to Oklahoma and visit my friends. We would hang out, go to country bars.
Hmm.
Um, and then that's when I met the recruiter. He was blonde haired, blue eyes, he had dimples. He looked like one of those cute boy bands, that we used to like back in the day. Um, he was very chivalry. If you ever seen the movie Frozen, he was like Prince Han, the one that manipulated. Um, is it Anna? It's been a
Yes.
while.
Yes. Yes.
Who manipulated Anna?
Right.
Because I remember when me and the recruiter met, everything felt so intense. I later realized that a lot of my abusive relationships, most of these men were narcissists
Hmm.
because they love bomb you in the beginning. They give you that fantasy world. They
Yes.
become the very person you want,
Right.
you know. The things that we read in fairy tales, the knight in shining armor that gallops on a white horse.
The gifts and the shiny and the attention and the love. Right.
Exactly. And
Yes.
it feels so intense
Yes.
that you feel like this must be real.
Yes.
This has to be real. And even the first abuse I went through with the recruiter, my thoughts were not running away. My thoughts were, what did I do wrong? How do I fix this? How do I make him smile at me again? And
Because
I learned later on that's called trauma bond.
yes, you just wanted that feeling of acceptance and love so much, and you thought he's real, so you're like, well, what did I do? Oh God. And so this relationship with the recruiter, we're calling the recruiter, and we'll know later why are we calling him like that. Was how long was in Oklahoma, this relationship that you had with him?
Less than 2 weeks. That's how fast the relationship went.
He was moving
And
fast.
he said, I want to take you to go meet my parents in Florida. We never went to Florida. I ended up in Nevada on an Indian reservation and I was trafficked. And this was between in the mid 90s. So nobody knew the terminology of human trafficking.
You were sold. Oh my God.
Yes. And I remember when I was at the warehouse, I actually thought I was in a foreign land. And so they would put us in warehouse trucks and they would cattle us like cattle
Oh my
to
God.
take us to different motels. And we had to meet the buyers there.
Oh my God.
And
You say
so,
we, were there other girls too? You say we, as in like a group of girls?
yes. So there would be a group of girls in each storage unit. This was like an old distribution warehouse type. And so some of the girls would stay behind, the other girls would go. The youngest girl that I encountered, she was about 6 or 7. I didn't know her name, but I called her Mia. I would witness girls being beaten, raped, sodomized, and even killed. Um, by the time, and because there was no terminology about human trafficking, one of the things that took me a long time to accept, I had to rank up as a madam. And when people ask me, what exactly does that mean? So in street term, they call it bottom girl if you're in a pimping world. But in
Mhm.
a high-end escort or trafficking, they call them madam of a high-end escort. Yes, I had to recruit girls. Yes, I had to also sell them. But it was the only way for me to climb my way on the top in order to get out. Because in the 90s, even though prostitution was illegal, but it was also looked down upon. So if you were a prostituted woman or a girl and you were beat up and you wanted to get away from a trafficker or a pimp, people would spit on you, people would rape you. There was no way out. So whenever I hear people that says, "Well, I would never do what you did," you haven't been in my shoes to even judge me
Oh my God.
of what I had to do. I
Right.
had to make the decision to survive, and whatever that means, to stay alive so I can be alive today
Right.
to share with you.
Yes.
So, with that being said, because I've been criticized so many times for being a madam, and you know what? I'm at the point in my life, I don't have any regrets because it brought me who I am today. It taught me how they prey on other children, how they groom. And now I'm turning the tables and
Right.
I'm teaching you, the viewers, how to protect your children.
I this is I almost want to say unbelievable. I never ever even imagined. I have to tell you, I know there was a movie made from your story, um, but there's still so much that I want to know from what happened because you're here today. So I want to know, how did you escape? And I'm asking that because I have to make a confession. I watched your movie, and after your first try to escape scene where the rich ladies in the backyard were just hanging out and they didn't do anything, and the guy pulled you back, and then you were started to be tortured, I couldn't watch it anymore. um, I apologize, it was so intense, and maybe I was at the in a state of mind where I was just not prepared for so much pain to see. I can't even imagine the torture that you had to go through. So I want to know, how did you escape? How Where did you find the strength to really keep yourself alive?
When I ranked up as a madam, I will admit I became lost. I
Hmm.
became seduced to the life. I became seduced to the designer garments. I was seduced to the lifestyle. Even though I didn't make any money for myself, I do want to emphasize that. Even though I ranked up as a madam, I still did not make any money. My trafficker took all my money, but I had a card that he gave me. So anything I spent, he would see all the inventory of what I spent. So if I wanted to plan to escape, I couldn't get a rope, I couldn't get knives. He would see all that. And so, and then also, when I was first trafficked, I was actually um, injected in my arms with morphine, cocaine, heroin, meth, ecstasy. Not all of them were injected, but some of them were. I became an addict.
Mm.
And when I ranked up as a madam, I had unlimited amounts of cocaine. I could, and that became the one thing that kept me in. But the one thing that woke me up, um, and this is going to be hard for people to concept, but it's also heavily big in Europe as well as in Russia, baby buying. When I say baby buying, in the trafficking world, And depending on what type of organized crime is behind it, my traffickers were Albanian, Russian, Korean, and some of the organized crime in Asia as well. They were all intermingling together. Um, so when a girl gets pregnant, they take the baby and they recycle the baby back into human trafficking. And when I say that, it can vary anywhere from false adoption. They'll be putting a bid on wealthy parents that are desperate for a baby. But guess what? These babies will never be in the arms of a desperate parent. All they're doing is taking the money. They'll have the parents wire half of the bid. And then guess what? The business is closed down. There's no way to trace it because it's an offshore account. It's a shell corporation, and back then nobody knew about the baby buying. Two, the baby that has not been adopted, and once they get the money, they also bring in other women from other countries for labor trafficking to care for this baby, put cute clothes on, pictures, things like that. And the baby is also recycled to predators and pedophiles that want to have sexual relations with an infant or a toddler. The other thing is when I found out I was pregnant, that became my wake-up call because I did not want my child to be involved in this. So I did everything I could. So in the casinos, I was in Las Vegas at the time. I was staying in presidential suites. Oh, and by the way, Epstein did not kill himself. That is my personal opinion. I truly believe in that because someone wanted to shut him up. I kid you not, and I've said this before, and people didn't believe me. The men that buy these children are extremely wealthy. They have power behind them. And so when people ask me, what politics? I don't have politics.
Right.
I'm nonpartisan. Because human trafficking is not a political issue. It's a human rights issue. That both sides need to be held accountable. And I said both. I'm not a left wing, nor am I a right wing.
Right.
Because children are being exploited and being used. And what is our government doing?
Right. So in Vegas, were you able to free yourself up from there?
Yes. The details are in my book.
Okay. You wrote a book.
So,
I know
yes.
I mentioned that you wrote, you had a movie. And yes, oh, you show it. You show it. Broken Silence. Wow. We have to, here is the, wow.
And if you watch this show, I do want to give the viewers, you can buy my book, you can go to my website, put hashtag, what hashtag would you like, Theodora? Victorious?
Be victorious.
Be victorious. Hashtag be victorious so you can get that $10 discount rate for my book. Because if you go to Amazon, you'll be paying $18.95 plus tax. Through me, it'll be just $10, and that's it, flat rate. And then there's also a movie called Eden, starring Beau Bridges and Jamie Chung. You can see that on Amazon Prime and also on Tubi. Tubi is free. You don't have to have a membership, just an FYI. But one of the things I do want to share, when I escaped, I had to do a lot of manipulation to the traffickers and the people associated to them in order to escape. It's not like one of those things that you could say, okay, well, now that, I'm getting older and I'm a madam, I'm tired, I'll put my 2 weeks in. It doesn't work that way in this type of industry.
Oh my God.
And that's why we work so hard to try to not legalize prostitution. That's another thing. People believe maybe we should legalize it. Look what happened to alcohol. We legalized that, and we have more people dead than enjoying a drink.
Right.
People are not being responsible. So what makes you think legalizing prostitution is going to do that? It's going to give the traffickers, who are going to be named the business holder of the sex industry, more power. What happens when a girl wants to leave? And when the people that want to legalize prostitution, they'll say, well, we need to create an exit strategy. Do you have an exit strategy when you are a doctor and you want to switch to another facility? No. Do you have an exit strategy when you don't want to work at a call center anymore? No. Do you have an exit strategy when you're working at Walmart as a cashier? No. So if you have to create an exit strategy, then that means you're admitting that there is harm and danger in this type of business.
And this is
the
the
sex industry.
lives. We're talking about people's lives here. We're talking about people that are tortured and girls that are raped and just, oh, I can't, your story is so unbelievable. I know it is, it's what you went through. What I admire is what you did with your story and what you continue to do, and the fact that, you work against all these predators and you work to help victims. And I know that you travel around the world to speak and encourage and work with the victims. Tell me a little about, I also know that you're married now and you have a son, and right, so take me to this happy stage of your life and to where you are now. And I just admire how much you were able to take such a tragedy and turn it around to become this beautiful person that you are today. Not that you're not beautiful then, you are absolutely amazing throughout your entire life. But what you were able to do with that story and how you transform and help others is the absolute meaning of my show. Be Victorious is all about transforming, and I'm just so honored that you're here. Tell me about today's life and how you were able to move from that, to where you are today.
Well, one thing I do want to share is that I was diagnosed with PTSD,
Right.
dissociative identity disorder, and also borderline personality dissociation. Because I had to swap through so many personas while I was trafficked. I had to play Suki. I had to play all the love me long time stereotypes as an Asian woman. There were even buyers that wanted me to act like a little girl, that I was 13, even though I was 19. I had to speak broken English to satisfy their sick fantasy. And so for a longest time, I had a hard time trusting men, especially.
Okay.
And so, oops, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Hold on. Okay. There.
It's good.
I need to get a new tripod. My apologies.
It's okay. It's fine. We can see you good.
Okay. So what I wanted to share with you is that it took me a long time. I mean, I didn't know what my diagnoses were at the time.
Right.
After my escape, I do want to share with this. I was still using drugs. I sold myself to survive because I did not have any work ethics. I did not have any skills. I had been in and out of being arrested for prostitution, theft, things like that. Another thing I want to emphasize, for those of you who have a business, please allow survivors to work in your company. Most of them have a criminal record,
Hmm.
addiction record, but look at their pattern, not what's on paper.
Hmm.
If they haven't repeated those negative behaviors or those criminal behavior, give them that second chance, because survivors alone have a difficult time in finding jobs that will work with them.
Right.
Um, anyway, it took me a long time. By the time because I had a baby when I was trafficked,
Hmm.
I placed that baby for adoption. It's a closed adoption because I want to protect that child. I
Yeah.
don't want the traffickers going after that child. So when I had my second child, I was scared. I was so afraid I would be an abusive mom. I was so afraid because I didn't have a healthy role model growing up. And I remember going to parenting class and I said, I'm afraid that I will get angry, I'll get triggered, because taking care of a baby without all the trauma that I have is
Yeah.
still difficult.
Right. Yes.
You're emotionally tired,
Mm.
you're worn out, especially the teething stage
Yeah.
when they keep crying and you don't know what to do, you know. And I remember the parenting class, they said, well, don't worry about it. It's probably not going to happen. That wasn't enough for me.
Yeah.
So I wanted to hold myself accountable. And so at that point, I was really scared. And so I remember the adoption agency, they said, well, let us have your son. One thing I do want to emphasize when I did place my baby for adoption, I know a lot of people who are against abortion, and I'm not going to talk about abortion rights, but I do want to say, please do not be so quick in suggesting adoption if you've never done it before,
Hmm.
because it is the most emotional, heartbreaking decision you
Yeah.
would have to make. It is grieving because you don't have that child anymore. Your body says you had a baby, but there's no infant to comfort. I went through depression. And when I went back to the adoption agency for counseling, they said no. To me, I think that's wrong. If you're going to place the baby for adoption, you
Yeah.
should provide resources
Help.
to help the birth mothers
Yes.
to get to that next stage, provide counseling, provide resources, help her with housing. Because what happened is when girls place their baby for adoption, most of these girls are minors. I was actually 21, but most of these girls were minors. They, once the baby is placed, they no longer have housing, they no longer have a career.
Hmm.
They still have to rest after the baby was born, but they don't have a baby.
Yeah.
So they're going through postpartum depression. These are things that are needed for birth moms. That's all I'm asking.
Right.
For those that are for adoption, please provide resources for birth moms. We are not throwaways.
How did you
Just
find?
I actually looked it up on the Yellow Pages, but this was in the 90s.
Uh-huh.
And so, but this is what was going on in the 90s. When the
Right.
girls placed their baby for adoption, they got kicked out. To me, I think that's wrong,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
So anyway, I just had to share that real quick. And
Good.
it has nothing to do with, abortion rights, but I just get irritated when
Hmm.
people who've never placed their baby for adoption, that's the first thing they say.
Yeah.
Well, I don't believe in abortion, so you should adopt. Be quiet,
Right.
please. If you've never placed your baby for adoption, be quiet.
You don't
Um,
know.
exactly.
Exactly. You
Um,
don't know.
but when I had my son, I remember the adoption agency said, well, you can give us your baby. I couldn't go through that again.
Yeah.
I had lost my son's father through death, and I couldn't imagine losing my son. So I decided to parent. But by the time my son was born, I went through postpartum depression.
Yeah.
I relapsed back into drugs. I was going to parties. I was promiscuous. And then February 22nd, 2001, I remember sitting in my car, and I kid you not, this is real. I remember I used to listen to AC/DC, death metal bands because I was angry. I was angry with everything I was doing. I wanted to listen to death metal bands to just vent. And so I bought a gun and I had some cocaine and I was ready to commit suicide on February 22nd, 2001. And so while I was getting ready to put the gun in my mouth, I was changing the channel, and I kid you not, Celine Dion's song came on. And it was called That's the Way It Is. But when I heard the first lyrics, and it says, I can read your mind, I know what you're going through. Tears just fell before me. To me, I felt like God was talking to me. Because if you listen to the song, she dedicated that song to her husband who was going through cancer.
Yes, right.
But when I was listening to that song, I felt like God was telling me, just hang on a little bit longer. I promise you things will get better. It'll be rough at first, but things will get better.
But here's the thing. This was not the first time that God spoke to you, because in the videos that I know from you and you send me, there was also a moment in your life when you were in the storage unit where the butterfly came and sat on your knee, and you thought then God told you to hold on.
Yes.
God didn't. So I know that your relationship with God through your entire life, as hard as it was, because you had a terribly hard life, God was always there with you.
Yes. And for people who are non-believers, you can use spiritual, you can use universe.
Yes.
I'm open to that.
Right.
For me, to me, I call him God.
Yes.
Because when I was trafficked, the first thing I said was, God, if I die, I don't want to be in heaven with you. I hate you. Because if you can allow these children to be mauled and abused, to me, this is worse than hell. So why would I want to be with you who allowed this to happen? And I was bawling my eyes.
Yes.
I was leaned up against the wall in the storage unit. I was holding my knee. And I remember one of the traffickers were pulling the doors up because it's one of those warehouse doors where you roll up. And that's when I saw the butterfly. And for that moment, I don't know if anyone has ever been through a traumatic incident where in that short moment you feel peace. You can't describe it,
right,
but you feel it, like everything's going to be okay. And that's what I felt like God was telling me. Everything's going to be okay. And so, throughout my life, I had spiritual awakening. I had God touch my heart, that gave me that encouragement and inspired me. But the one thing I remember going back when I was in foster care, I was 12, 13 years old. I actually told God, I want 2 children. I want a girl and a boy. And then the second wish I said, the first wish was I wanted 2 children, a girl and boy. My second wish, I don't want to be an abusive parent. God remembered that when I was 13 years old. So I had a daughter. I placed her for adoption, and now she's free. I had a son. I was scared. So God was telling me, in order for you to be the mother that you need to be, what do you want for your son? And my first thought is, I want him to learn to respect women. And I felt like God was saying, well, it starts with you.
right,
Because you are his role model.
exactly.
And in order for him to see you as this victorious woman, I had to start the journey. So guess what I did? I went to the mental health institution. I said, these drugs do not help. And I spit at him. The Prozac, the lithium, whatever they gave me, I spit in his face, the doctor. I thought he was going to get angry. And so I was ready to duck
Yeah.
because I thought he was going to swing at me, and he clapped. He said, "Thank you. Thank you for taking charge of your trauma." And
Again.
that's when,
Again.
yes, but that was the first time
Okay.
because I actually did not take charge of my trauma before. It was everything was about survival.
Right. Yes. Yes.
This is the first time I'm actually wanting to
Yes.
be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I was diagnosed with DID. I was diagnosed with PTSD. I was diagnosed with borderline personality dissociation. But I was also taught DBT,
Mm-hmm.
dialectic behavioral therapy. I don't use 12 steps. I am not a fan of them because I feel like because I was force fed with drugs, it wasn't like I went out to a party to try it out. It
Yeah.
was force fed to me. So I did not feel like it applied to me. People can disagree, but for me, I went with what worked for me. And so when I dived into DBT, dialectic behavioral therapy, mindfulness, holistic healing, I had been clean for 22 years
Ah,
from
you're amazing.
cocaine, meth, and crack cocaine.
You're amazing. You're
Thank you.
so amazing. I know you go and you speak and you're on big stages with big people and the world is yours now and I appreciate that. I also know that one of the questions that most people would ask and are thinking about would be how were you able to forgive? You and I talked about this, and your approach to forgiveness changed my thinking when I think about forgiving people from my life. You know, I we all have a story, and my story is interesting too. However, when you and I talked about forgiveness, the way you brought the twist to not only the world but to the thought and to making that adjustment to how do we look at forgiveness, because for you it had to be a lot of work to forgive them, all the trauma, the man, the all that the past was a lot of work, but you have a different way of looking at forgiveness. Can you share with us, please?
Absolutely. So I also grew up with spiritual abuse. I
Hmm.
went through Catholic school. I, I would always hear the word forgive. You have to forgive. You have to forgive. It made me cringe.
Yeah.
I hated that word because to me, I comprehended that as I gave you a pass. No, I'm not giving you a pass. I'm not allowing this to be okay.
Yes.
And so when I went through a therapy, I remember one of the instructors, the support facilitator, she talked about forgiveness. I got up and walked out the door. I said, nope, this is not for me. I got up and walked out. And after the group, she looked at me and she said, can we talk alone? And I thought, great. She's going to reprimand me. She's going to judge me because I don't want to forgive. So she said to me, I want you to write a list of people you don't want to forgive. And I said, easy. So I started making lists. Then on the other side of the paper, she wanted me to write down all the reasons why I don't want to forgive them.
Hmm.
So I started writing. Then she told me to get a bonfire, like a small little, remember those coffee cans?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can actually create a small little bonfire. But for me, because I live in the suburbs, I actually went to a park and I was acting like I was grilling something. So I made a bonfire on those grill things.
Yeah. Right.
And so she told me to take the paper and just take little pieces. You don't have to tear up the whole thing. Just take little pieces and say, I'm letting you go so I can be me. I'm letting you go so I can be free. I'm breaking the chains that bounds you and me. I'm letting you go so I can be me. And so what I did is I reframed forgiving to letting go. So if you're at that stage where you don't want to forgive, then don't.
Mm-hmm.
But always remember that you don't need to also consume that negativity. So reframe it to letting go for those who can't forgive.
So beautiful. The way it changes the energy around the thought is just so liberating. To me, it's very
Absolutely.
liberating because our conversation was, how do you forgive? How are you able to? Because I was holding on to this, like, oh gosh, if I could just go back, and if we're just very fired up and like a volcano inside almost to all this, past that. And so my question was, when you described how, and the little poem, I know it's on your Facebook, so
Yes,
our,
I shared it with everyone.
it is amazing how, what a difference it makes, and how it changes the perspective of forgiveness to let go. Just letting
Absolutely.
go. So that's so amazing. um what's next? Let's talk about the movie. We haven't talked about the movie. So um Eden, and it's tough. It's a hard. I might be able to go back, and it's not something that I wanted to watch with Alma because it's just so intense. So we want to maybe advise our viewers that if they want to watch the movie, to put the kids to bed before they do that. um
I do think the appropriate age would be anywhere between 14 and up with parents around. But
mhm.
I think the parents should watch it beforehand,
Yes.
before they
Thank
bring their teenage daughters or sons in it. That would be my advice. Some parents don't want to show their teenagers the film. It does not have any sex scenes, it does not have any rape scenes. The worst part is you'll see a guy laying on the floor with no pants, but he's cupping his private area,
you.
and you'll see blood. That's the worst thing that you'll see. Especially in today's world, there's way more stuff that we see than what this movie shows. But what I want to let people know, what Eden is basically about, it's about my story, but it's about how I had to outsmart my traffickers in order to get away. And so, in living in a world where there was corruption that was surrounded by this, that was supporting this, and so it was very hard. Um, I'm also working on another media project called Every 40 Seconds, because in the United States, every 40 seconds, a child goes missing. That's an equivalent of 2,100 children that go missing in a day.
Mm.
And that's through missing and exploited children, as well as the FBI stat. And one in every fourth child falls into human trafficking. This is why I urge parents, please, please, if you want to post pictures of your kids on your social media, do not post them as a profile picture. I see tons of parents doing that.
Yeah.
That is a for sure way that a predator will know you have kids in your home. Do not post your profile picture of your children, because that in itself is showing all the other people that can see it, including predators.
Right. Oh God, the work you do now is just so amazing. And I know that you're helping the world be a better place, and speaking on big stages. And are you still working actively in advocating and human rights, and going to speak at big events? And are you still involved with human rights advocates? Or I know there was some decisions that were made there to retire. And so what can we hire you to do now? How do you work now?
I don't do any type of outreach or social services.
Hmm.
That means I get parents that contact me that says my child's missing. Please refer to your local agencies or coalition in your state and ask them for resources. I don't assist those type of cases anymore. Um, I only do consulting with the FBI. I do public speaking and education. You can find me on all my social media at I am Chong Kim. I have Facebook, I have Twitter, I have Instagram, and I have TikTok. Most of my TikTok, I have videos about grooming, what to look for. I am going to put all of my TikTok and transferring it to YouTube. So I will be sharing that on my website. So that way you don't have to go and scramble and look for my videos.
Yeah.
I'll be sharing them on my website soon. And my website is iamchongkim.net. I
Yeah.
used to have iamchongkim.com. That is now a luxury cosmetic website. That's not mine.
The
It is I
website
am
that's scrolling on the bottom is correct, yes?
awesome. Yes.
Okay.
And one last thing I want to share, and maybe we can do a second segment
Yeah.
because you do finance, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I got me one of these.
Budget planner. I love it.
I love this because in the pages, it has 12 months that you can, and it's color coded. And if you're like me, I love color pens. I like to feel a little girly, put cute little stickers
Yes.
because it brings back the child in me that I didn't get to have.
Yes.
But one of the things I do want to share just real quick, survivors of human trafficking as well as abuse have a much harder time when it comes to finance. I would love to do a segment with you to talk about what I learned as a survivor, because most survivors of human trafficking, their Social Security has been reused by the trafficker. So a lot of times you have a lot of stuff on your credit that isn't yours. How to get rid of them, how to report them.
Yeah.
Also, another thing, traffickers will use Social Security numbers.
Yeah.
If you have relatives that have recently passed away, please check their credit even after, especially 6 months to a year after their death. Check the credit report because traffickers will use their Social Security number to recycle to one of their slaves.
I don't think anybody thinks about those things.
Yep, that is also called identity theft.
Right. It's a subject that is somehow put away because nobody wants to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll deal with it.
Yes.
We'll talk about it. We definitely have to have you back on the show because there's a lot more exciting things that you're doing now, and I want to talk about that, and I want to continue helping others and bring your victorious story to the next level, to where you are now, and the amazing things that you do. But Chong, I am so grateful for you. And I'm
Thank
so
you.
grateful that you fought through the hardship and you did not allow yourself to give up.
It was hard.
It was a
It
battle.
was definitely hard.
Yes, I know, but you're here now, and I wanna apologize to you for what happened in the past, for the women that were mean to you. I'm sorry. And I want to tell you how grateful I am that you're here to teach the world, through your experience and through your life that you went through. I'm grateful that you're here with us today. And I just wish I could hug you. When I first met you on that Zoom call, I was not on camera. My camera was shut off because I had tears that I could not stop. And my first reaction was so much sadness. But getting to know you and spend time with you and talk to you and actually listen to your entire story, I became so happy to know that because of what happened and who you are now, and you being able to be here and share with us. It's a privilege. And
Thank
your
you.
story is a happy story, even though it started so sad.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
so much, and I admire you, and I cannot wait to give you a hug.
Thank you. Thank you. And if you want to order the book, go through the contact form, put the hashtag Be Victorious to get your autographed copy.
Oh, you're so amazing, and you continue to give and give and give. I hands down, you're the most amazing person that I know.
Thank you.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you for your time. We are
Thank
here at
you.
an hour, and I don't want to take more of your time than I don't want to take more than I'm given. So I'm gonna end the live. But before I do that, I want to ask our audience, please share this. Share Chong's story so that we can help others, because every 40 minutes somebody needs to hear it, and
Yes.
we're here to help. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. I will see you in a minute here. Stay with me so I can give you a virtual hug. And
Okay.
for everybody else, I hope you have a great day. And I hope you're going to help somebody with this episode.